January 12th, as we head into Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. annual holiday weekend, KBLA Talk 1580 will announce a historic climate justice campaign aimed at California communities of color. KBLA Talk 1580 is joined in this historic effort by both public and private partners including LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, Cal and Dow, the Sierra Club, and many other partners. There's a clear connection between Dr. King's moral conscience on the notion of reverence for all human life and the future of our world house. This year, on the MLK holiday weekend, KBLA assigns itself the task of elevating the climate conversation by amplifying the voices of those who are most impacted by the climate catastrophes we are witnessing in real time. Stay tuned for more details. At KBLA Talk 1580, Climate is king.
With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
KBLA Talk 1580. So excited to welcome in the first show of our new year around here on KBLA Talk 1580. Grammy Award winning master percussionist, spiritual advisor. He is a community organizer in his own right. The Ajibilu Awo of Osobo Chief Ayanda Clarke joins us. Good morning.
Good morning, Dominique. How are you?
I'm blessed. Happy 2024 to you.
Same to you. Same to you.
Well, you chose that Fela Kuti song to start us off for 2024. Why did you pick that one for your walk on music, Chief Clarke?
I'm always a fan for Fela. Fela reminds me of the intersection between artistry and activism, and when I hear Fela's music, you gotta love Fela, but you also have to be reminded of his mission and the mission of we as African peoples, we as African diasporic peoples, to keep fighting the good fight and walking standing against oppression. So I'm always Fela's always one of my go-tos.
You know, I was blessed to go to Fela Kuti Shrine when I went to Nigeria in 2019 to Lagos. And the mission is so front and center because anyone can come in there. It costs almost nothing to go in. They have music offerings all of the time. And it's really like a community space. It's all a welcome community space in the heart of Lagos, which is such a mecca for the very rich and the very poor.
Absolutely, it reminds us that and the name, the shrine. A lot of times we think of the shrine and we think of these very lofty and sacred spaces that are maybe sometimes inaccessible to people. But what I love about the naming of that particular space, the shrine, is consistent with my understanding of shrine spaces, which are sacred spaces in which people can connect to a divine essence. And so even if that divine essence is through, the spirit of music and the spirit of camaraderie and community, that's the spaces that I like to be in.
It's a great point. They actually have big tributes to John Coltrane and all of these musical ancestors, if you will. But of course, I have to ask you that because aside from being, the founding elder of Ile, Oturupong Sokun Ifa Temple. You're also a musician.
I am. They're both. They both inform one another. I think that as I was raised, we talked about this even last time I was here. Again, thank you for having me back. But we spoke last time we were here about how I was raised, and I was raised. I'm the second generation musician. My father, Chief Babalawo Clarke, was and is a master percussionist, and he traveled the world with Mr. Harry Belafonte and Mr. Randy Weston. And so as a child, I grew up in amongst those luminaries, those giants, in both as artists and as musical. Sometimes we use genius too often, but I'll say genius. And then they are also activists, and very much connected to the wellness and the health of our communities. So, as a musician, and the intersection between music and spiritual upliftment and spiritual wellness is where I live.
And I talk a lot on this show about this through line because I think sometimes we don't acknowledge enough how many of our young leaders, and you're a relatively young leader as in the musical space and as a Babalawo, that we come from families that are also activists. In your case, musicians, activists, and the spiritual piece are all intergenerational. And I think that's powerful because sometimes we kind of omit that and act like we just spring from nowhere instead of connecting that through line of activism in many of our families and communities.
I think none of us, we all have roots, and much of the work that I do is in helping people to connect to those roots and acknowledge the importance of those roots. We didn't just get here, right? There are those who have come before us. There are those who have paved the way for us, who have raised us, and who have influenced us. And then, by extension, there are those that we are going to influence by our actions and the choices and decisions that we make today, right? Our children are watching us, and we will eventually be the ancestors that our children will call upon and will stand upon. So our choices and decisions and the things that we do today have impact. And so yeah, we come from someplace, and we are influencing those who will come after us.
Chief Ayanda, Clarke, I know that in the West African spiritual tradition, specifically Nigerian Yoruba tradition, that you practice, study, embody, typically there is some guidance or some sort of an outlook for the year ahead. And so I wonder if what you would share with us about 2024 as we embark on this next 12 months.
Absolutely. I think it's important to recognize first and foremost that that life moves in cycles. That even our existence on this plane is cyclical. And so the acknowledgement of cycles and acknowledgement of the circle is super important, not only in Yoruba philosophy and not only in Yoruba diasporic philosophy, but all over the world where traditions are honored. We think of the cycle, the circle in the cycle. And maybe not ironically, but importantly, in traditional Yoruba understanding, this January 1 on our calendar is not the beginning of the year. For many traditions where the cycle is connected to the natural environment, what winds up being our springtime is the beginning of the cycle, the new life, when new life emerges, when the trees bud, when the flowers bloom, when the crops begin to bear fruit, is considered the beginning of the year. So in the Yoruba understanding, the beginning of the year is actually in June and is celebrated in June. But for much of the world, if not all of the world at this point, the Gregorian calendar, the January to December cycle is acknowledged and recognized. So I always say, when people say, "Oh, Happy New Year," I always say this time of year, I say Happy 2024. So it's funny that you greeted me with a Happy 2024, because yes, we can acknowledge that this is 2024 and we are moving out of 2023. So it offers us opportunity for new imaginings of our existence, looking back on the cycle that we just come out of and looking forward into the cycle that we're going into. This year, 2023, the former year 2023, has offered us a lot of lessons, things that we could take from it, things reminded us of the importance of humanity and ethics and moral behavior. We can carry those things over into our 2024. There's an opportunity to be the best reflections of ourselves as individuals that we can be, and we understand how individual action and individual behavior connects to our society and our community outside of us. So we have so many examples of choices and decisions that individuals made that have global impact, that have impact on groups of people. So it begins with the self. And so I always advise people in this January time to look at, what are our personal lessons? Where do we find success in the last cycle? Where were we challenged in the last cycle? Where do we see room for improvement as we're moving forward? And that's the individual guidance I try to give to people in this time of year.
It's interesting. We started off the show this morning with the Christian pastor, Pastor Eddie Anderson of McCarty Memorial in Los Angeles, and he was talking about the lessons of last year. So it's interesting that you guys both landed on that same thing, and maybe that's why we think of people say 2023 was hard. It was challenging. It was full of obstacles because of those lessons.
I think if I'm honest, I would say that every 2022 was wrought with challenge. 2021.
That's the same thing I said.
Right?
Yeah.
So what Ifadara particularly teaches us is that we always have to remain hopeful. We have to remain in balance. And while we can look and acknowledge the lessons and the challenges that we experienced, we also have to look at the positive things that we experienced as well. And by virtue of the fact that everyone, all of us who are listening today and sharing this space today, we have experienced success in 2023. We have seen the dawning of January 1st, 2024. We are taking the breath of life in our lungs, even on this morning. So in that, there's a celebration. There's an opportunity for us to be better reflections of ourselves today than we were yesterday. So, yeah, we had tons of challenges. There's no question. But we also have hope because we have persevered. We have achieved some levels of success that we need to build upon. So, yeah, challenging, yes, but we remain hopeful. We remain optimistic, and we remain looking forward to the blessings of this next cycle.
Chief Ayanda, Clarke is my guest, starting off this first show of this year, and we continue the conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA CAN also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007, they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA CAN believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're speaking with Chief Ayanda Ifadara Clarke, and he is a musician, a teacher, a public speaker, a creative consultant, an artist, and a Babalawo, an Egungun priest in the Yoruba tradition, starting off our year. And you're talking about cycles, remaining hopeful and balanced. I was laughing because I had said earlier in the show that I feel like every year we're saying, oh, I hated 2020. 2021 is going to be great. I hated 2021. And I think it after a while, I feel like maybe we're being a little whiny, or perhaps that I'm just wondering like how what would serve us better? What would be a better framing for, I always say, okay, well, let's look at the wins and the challenges, the blessings and the lessons. It sounds like you are inviting us to focus on our personal lessons and our collective wins.
Absolutely. I think that wellness, when we talk about wellness, we have to remember that wellness is a continuum. Right, it's not something that you don't do wellness. You don't do health. You live wellness and you live health. It's a lifestyle.
Right.
And so the same way that we give grace to, I'm a dad, right? And when my children were born, they were whole and complete babies. And then each year, with each lesson, with each day that moves, that can progress, they learned and they grew to be the 19-year-old and the 9-year-old that they are now. But it's a continuum. It's a process. And so when we're thinking about wellness, we have to think of what are the things that we did well last year. What are the things that we should carry forward? Like perhaps last year, we focused on our physical well-being. Maybe we made it a point to make sure that we went to seek counsel from doctors. Maybe we embarked on a physical activity regimen that we found helpful. And if so, then we'll carry that forward. Maybe this year we're deciding I didn't call my mother as much. Right. So maybe I'm going to call my mother more this year. Maybe we decided that there's still room for me to improve my understandings of self. maybe there's room for me to engage in therapy sessions more. Maybe there's room for me to focus on my career. I've been imbalanced. I've been focusing more on taking care of others and haven't taken care of myself. All these things are opportunities for us to be the better reflections of ourselves. And so if we spend all of our time being critical and like to your point, whining about the things we didn't do in 23, then we're gonna get to April and still be whining about what we didn't do in 23 instead of setting some intentional goals for what we can achieve in 2024. I don't know about you, but I feel like it was just yesterday that it was January 2nd, 2023.
Yeah.
Right? It was just yesterday.
Yeah.
And it really takes a moment to reflect on what did I do in 2023? What did we do? A lot of times, I can tell you that I'm a person that peruses social media sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes. And at the end of the year, everyone's always posting all the things they did in 2023. Oh, this is a year in review. That's great. It's great to put it on the gram and to tell people what you've done. But maybe we can reflect on what the lessons are, not just the experiences, but what the lessons are. And that keeps us hopeful and optimistic and purposeful as we're moving forward. So
I like that. It seems like you're talking about a personal inventory of sorts based on lessons, not just accomplishments. And also that is part of, this impulse that a lot of folks have, whether your cycle is June to June or January to January, this impulse that a lot of people have to better our personal well-being as a commitment to a new cycle.
I'm so glad you used the word impulse, right? Because it is just that. It's an impulse. And sometimes impulses are not balanced. Sometimes impulses are not carefully conceived, don't lead to carefully conceived action steps and planning. And so, we're compelled to, at the beginning of this cycle, look forward to what we're going to do. But how, right? So New Year's resolutions, I don't make New Year's resolutions. Instead, I set intentions, right? And I encourage people to be intentional, because if we're intentional about a thing, it will inform us, and we have that intention in our brain. I'm intentionally going to make this year a year that I focus on maintaining balance in all things, making sure my output of energy, my output of resources, my output of finances is appropriate and commensurate with what I'm bringing in, right? With what I'm taking in, and we see when things are imbalanced, when we are unhealthy physically, oftentimes is because we are not taking out or expelling at a commensurate rate, appropriate rate to what we are taking in so many ways. Energetically, right? Our efforts, are we doing for ourselves as much as we are doing for others? Are we consuming, physically taking in the healthy foods? Are we expending and burning enough energy? If we don't, then we will have challenges maintaining a healthy body structure and integrity, right? So all of those things matter. We see balance as a fundamental Yoruba concept that we can apply to all things. We want to make sure that our expenditure and our intake is consistent with maintaining healthy balance.
Let's go to Jamal calling us from Los Angeles. Jamal, you are on with Chief Ayanda Ifadara Clarke. Welcome.
Good morning, and Arasia. And I've listened to everything the Chief was saying this morning, and it sure turns out to be something that I myself have gone through in this past year. And so You know, the chief is right on point. In my family, Yoruba runs deep. In my family, I met the first at a very young age, a woman from Cuba, and I still say her name to this day, Santa, because she continues to impact my life with the things she told me when I was a very young man running wild, and I was so appreciated to hear from her. You know, the things that I've gone through last year, I took them as a lesson in how I process those things, you know. Not to let anything discombobulate me, you know, to accept the energy that may be, this negative energy that may be coming from outside of me and not incorporating it within myself. Not taking sides with things that are not worth fighting for, you know. I know I've been elected as an elder to help my younger people in my family, and I do the best that I can. But I will not allow them to have me take side one against the other.
Appreciate the testimony, Jamal. Do you have a question, or are you just calling to build on what Chief Ayanda Clarke said?
Well, everything that he said was right on point, and I must say that, you know, and I appreciate listening to the program this morning.
Thank you, Jamal. It's great to hear from you. Is there anything you take from what Jamal was sharing? We just have a minute before news, traffic, and sports here, Chief Clarke.
Absolutely, Jamal. I celebrate Jamal's commitment to using the lessons that were passed to him. I am familiar with Sunta Ibaye. Sunta was the godmother of my father and my mother, as they were emerging as Yoruba practitioners. So the energy and the wisdom of the ancestors that has been poured into Jamal, that he's using to guide and support people coming after him, that's very consistent with what we mean by ethical and moral behavior. So thank you for that, Jamal.
It's beautiful. We're talking with Chief Ayanda Clarke. I want to mix your two names together. Ayanda Ifadara Clarke, and you're welcome to join 800-920-1580. Want to talk about a new project you have coming up, and further outlook on how we can upgrade ourselves moving forward. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A collision between two planes on a runway in Tokyo has left 5 dead and more than a dozen hurt. Japan Airlines Flight 516 apparently collided with a Coast Guard aircraft as it was attempting to land this morning, then streaked across the runway on fire. The airline says the nearly 380 passengers and crew members were all able to evacuate, but at least 17 are injured. Nationally renowned poet and longtime University of Washington English professor Colleen J. McElroy has died. The Seattle Times reports McElroy died December 12th of natural causes. She was 88. McElroy was the first black woman to become a full-time faculty member at the University of Washington in 1983. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Is this the time?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers beat Miami last night by 17 at Crypto.com. Third straight win for the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard had 24 points, 5 assists, and 4 steals. 10 assists for James Harden. The Clippers are 8-2 in their last 10 games. The Lakers are off until Wednesday night. They play Miami at Crypto. The Rams are in the playoffs, but they've got some serious issues with their kicking game. The Rams cut place kicker Lucas Havlicek on Monday. Havlicek missed 2 extra points in the Rams win over the Giants in New York. The Rams are giving Brett Mayer a second chance. He was re-signed Monday afternoon to replace Havlicek. Mayer was cut in Week 7 after he missed 6 field goals and an extra point. Michigan will play Washington for the College Football National Championship next Monday night in Houston. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit LAFLA.org. LAFLA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Girl, I have a secret. When I get stressed out, I get sweaty. That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant. It's like my own secret weapon. For 72 hours, I get Secret's strongest protection against sweat caused by stress, heat, and activity, because you know how crazy life can get. Plus, it's made with advanced odor fighters that don't just cover up smelliness. They help prevent it from happening in the first place. Believe me, if I weren't wearing Secret, I'd be a hot, smelly mess. Thankfully, Secret works.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
Chief Ayanda Ifadara Clarke is our guest. There's a little bit of his music. So interesting that you chose Fela Kuti. Oh, I just knew you were going to pick one of your songs. Tell us on the musical side, Chief Clarke, where can we find your work?
I am. What you're listening to is work of concert that I did, was invited to share stage with the great Dr. Randy Weston, and what I love about playing with jazz greats and with fusion greats, what excites me about Fela Kuti is the intersection between different aspects of African diasporic music that people think being separate and apart. So I'm playing a talking drum, the doom doom, talking drum from Yoruba land on that recording, and I'm playing with Dr. Randy Weston on piano. I'm playing with Talib Kibwe on saxophone, and the marriage of the talking drum and jazz piano is not one that people readily make. The intersection between Yoruba, Orisha music, and funk is not one that people readily make. So I love being at those spaces where I can bring those two worlds together. We just finished a residency at National Sawdust this fall, and it was a marriage between traditional drum ensembles from Guinea, Mali, Senegal, Cuba, Brazil, Yoruba land, and hip-hop. And helping people bridge those gaps and see that there is a continuum. There is a continuum of African cultural elements that are running through all of the things, all of the different aspects of Black music globally are infused with this African understanding and sensibility. So I'm excited about a new project that we're working on. In this one is an intersection of hip hop, theater, and Yoruba philosophy and cosmology. And the program, the theater piece is a play written by Sangu Jikam, and it will be opening at the Apollo Theater's new Victoria Theater. Apollo has a new theater that they're opening in Harlem on 125th Street. And in that space, Thinking Ink will be premiered and will be one of the first pieces at this location.
Thinking Ink is the name of the play, right?
Yes, Thinking Ink is the name of the play. And Thinking Ink is a story of a young man who wants to be an MC and who wants to find his voice, who wants to find the power of his words. In Yoruba, we call that Ashe Lenu. And so we know there's not an MC that you have heard of or spoken to, or even an aspiring MC who doesn't know the importance of finding their voice. And so to be able to bridge and help people to make the connection to how hip-hop, we just celebrated Hip-Hop 50. Everybody was everybody was excited about the 50th anniversary of hip-hop. But we want to make sure that people are remembering that hip-hop came from someplace and hip-hop is going someplace.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the cultural elements, you're the spiritual advisor and the cultural director of this off-Broadway play, which is coming in May. And I guess I'm assuming that they know they needed a cultural and spiritual director because it's based on this this intersection of hip hop and African music and spirituality.
Yeah, right now, what I'm excited about is I'm excited that that the world is being exposed. Contemporary audiences are being exposed to what we've always known as the power, the beauty, and the grace of African artistry. And through Afro beats and through the collaboration with pop music and contemporary African artists, musical artists, that's being highlighted. One thing that we see oftentimes depicted is a spiritual essence of Africa and its diaspora depicted in television and in movies and on stage. And unfortunately, sometimes those depictions are sometimes inaccurate and oftentimes surface level.
Yeah.
So there's not a depth. There's not a depth of the understanding that of the culture that is informing. So we all, oftentimes your listeners will hear the word Ashe. Everyone is going to say Ashe. We say Ashe to this and Ashe to that, and we hear it all the time. But Ashe, as it is an affirmation, a lending of power, of your personal power to a concept or an idea or a statement. What we know Ashe to be is the power to make things happen. So just using the word Ashe is not enough. Let's understand how. What's the context behind it? How should it appropriately be used? How should Orisha, which we often hear, even we know in popular music, we hear depictions of Oshun and Shango, these words and these terms that are starting to emerge as commonplace in popular music and culture, but there's a philosophy, there's an understanding beneath it. And what I love about Thinking Ink is they chose to make sure that the Yoruba elements, the African elements, are not sprinkled on the top after the bread has been baked, but has been baked inside of the bread. The ingredients are included. So in my role as spiritual advisor and cultural director, my goal is to make sure that these cultural references are grounded and based in appropriate concept and appropriate cosmology and appropriate philosophy, and so that there's respect given to these traditions and not just a surface level sprinkling on of the Africanness.
Yeah, well said. In sinkinginc.com, if you want to find out more about the play, maybe get tickets. Sinking, I-N-K, sinkinginc.com. More on that. You know, you talk about the 50th anniversary of hip hop and the elements of African musicality, which are found in, as you mentioned, funk, jazz, rock and roll, blues, gospel, spirituals, and definitely hip hop. I think about call and response. I think about syncopation in the drum. What else are we drawing from that I'm not mentioning here? And if it's really going all the way back to Africa, maybe it's more than a 50-year anniversary.
It's more than a 50-year anniversary. It's the like you said, it's the call and response. It's the power of the spoken word. It's the power of the history being embedded in the storytelling. So when we listen to one of the greatest MCs, Rakim, we listen to the storytelling that's in Rakim's music. We listen to the way he's able to turn a phrase and use proverbs, right, and use references, analogies that are popular to give very deep philosophical understandings. These are things that are not new to hip hop, but are what we sometimes take for granted as Africanisms that we experience all the time. The use of the drum. Last time we were on, we talked a lot about the use of the drum. The DJ becomes the drummer. The DJ becomes the drum ensemble, and the DJ with those ones and twos makes choices and decisions that moves the crowd and that gives the foundation for the MC to weave to tell the story and weave the web of the storytelling in powerful ways. This is the role that the drummer has always played. So yeah, it's a continuum. It's a continuum.
So it might be like the 3,000, 5,000 year anniversary of hip hop. It might be something more like that.
It might be something. And what's great is that it emerges, it changes. It's changing. Like I love that Andre 3000 right now is that he's making us rethink, and reimagine what hip hop is.
Okay, if you say so,
Chief artists Clarke. Have been doing it. We got to give room. We have to leave room for the artistry to emerge. However it needs to. It's growing. It's growing.
Okay, I can go along with that. That makes sense. Chief Ayanda Ifadara Clarke is my guest, and we'll continue the conversation when we come forward exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Hey LA, save water and put money in your pocket with rebates from LA DWP. Start saving with free shower heads and faucet aerators. Then save with every flush when you upgrade to a water efficient toilet and get a $250 rebate. You can also save on every load of laundry with a high efficiency clothes washer and get a $500 rebate. That's right, LA DWP customers can get $500 rebates on qualifying clothes washers. See all the ways to save at ladwp.com/save.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 and the Empowerment Congress, pursuing justice through participatory democracy. Listen to KBLA Talk 1580, Saturday morning, January 13th, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. for an exclusive forum featuring the candidates for LA County District Attorney. Join KBLA's Tavis Smiley as he helps navigate what promises to be a forum full of fire when the candidates trying to unseat current LADA George Gascon come together on stage on the campus of the Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science. Again, it's the LA County District Attorney Forum, live, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580, Saturday morning, January 13th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., helping to raise your civic IQ. We're KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth.
Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
And we're starting off our year with a conversation with Chief Ayanda Ifadara Clarke. He is a Grammy Award-winning percussionist and also a Babalawo and a Gungun priest in the Yoruba tradition. Got a lot going on. The convener of the Afro Vitality Wellness Expo and so much more. Going back to what you said earlier in the conversation, that in the West African ancient Yoruba tradition, the calendar year or the cycle would run from spring to spring, from June to June. So we'd be entering the second half of that cycle. What would you say is like the theme, or the if there was a meditation or an idea that would represent this cycle for you from June to June? What would it be?
Yeah, this is the time where we harness our energy, where we so if we imagine that harvest time would be in the time from the June until somewhere in September, October, and then we are we were harvesting. We were at the time of rest is the time in that fall period from the October until December. Right now, we're entering into this phase where it's time for us to store our energy because the time in spring from April until May is a time where we're going to be planting, right? So now the time where we're really thinking long and hard about what do we want to see happen? What are the fruits that we want to see emerge in the first half of the year of next year, June, or from June 24 until September 24. What do we want to harvest? Now is the time for us to store our energy, to set our intentions so that we can begin planting those things, putting those things in place in the second quarter of 2024. So once we get to March, we want to really know what are we expecting, what are we planting so that we can begin to reap those benefits once we get to June. Now, this is why we are oftentimes thinking of assessing what did we do, what did we gather last year, what lessons did we learn, how successful were we in accomplishing our tasks from last year. Now we set our intentions, we plan for what we want to put in the ground in March so that we can reap the benefits of that when we come to June. It's a time of reflection. A time of reflection, a time of planning, a time of setting intentions and setting purpose.
And I mean, in this time that we're in, the season that we're in globally, a lot of folks do feel overwhelmed or discouraged or saddened. How do you process that? How do you suggest that people process that and turn that, the saying is pain into purpose, or the lessons, turn them into progress?
I think the thought of there's a transition period. We know the experiences, the pain into progress, for example. We've experienced pain, but it doesn't magically turn into progress. It doesn't magically happen that we all of a sudden the light bulb clicks and then we were able to make that transformation. It is a process, and in the processing of the difficulties, there are always lessons in them. There are always lessons. We can never control what someone else is going to do. We can't control the actions of an outsider. We can control our own actions. We can participate and lend our ashe, lend our power, our physical power, our spiritual power, our pocket power, right, to things that we know are going to bring us success, or we expect to bring us success next. So where are the lessons? I know last year, personally, my experiences for the second half of last year was an immense expenditure of energy. I had so many projects that I was working on personally that I put out a lot of energy. And what happens is you feel depleted. A person feels depleted. So if you are experiencing that moment of feeling depleted, your body, your spirit is calling for you to rest and recharge. Listening to your body, listening to the counsel, however it is that you get counsel. So many different traditions find ways to connect to advice. I, as an ancestral practitioner, I look to my ancestors to help give me advice and guidance. I look to the natural world and to the powers of the natural world to give me advice and guidance. And listening to that advice and guidance and creating a plan of action to move forward is what ultimately leads to our success. So if one is feeling saddened now, if one is feeling overwhelmed now, the best thing to do is to pause and rest. Pause and rest. We have a proverb that says that the still pond is what is required in order to see the rippling effects of the pebble that we throw. So if we imagine going to a pond and throwing a pebble is the action step, right? We throw the pebble into the pond. We hope to see the ripples when that pebble hits the pond. But it doesn't occur if the pond is not still. If the pond is disturbed, if the wind is blowing, if the fish are swimming underneath the pond, then we don't see the full effects of the pebble hitting the pond. So we want, for ourselves, when we're feeling those moments of feeling overwhelmed, do our best to find stillness, find balance. And then we can ensure that the steps that we take next will have positive rippling effects in our lives.
Ayanda Ifadara Clarke is my guest. He's chief and Babalawo. And when we come forward, we'll get some final thoughts from him, as well as the ways that you can find him on the internets and beyond. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
Hey LA, save water and put money in your pocket with rebates from LADWP. Start saving with free shower heads and faucet aerators. Then save with every flush when you upgrade to a water-efficient toilet and get a $250 rebate. You can also save on every load of laundry with a high-efficiency clothes washer and get a $500 rebate. That's right, LADWP customers can get $500 rebates on qualifying clothes washers. See all the ways to save at ladwp.com/save.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Chief Ayanda Ifadara Clarke, Grammy Award-winning master percussionist, a Babalawo and an Egungun or ancestral priest, has been our guest. Got a couple minutes here, a minute and a half, I guess. Chief Clarke, what would you want to leave us with? What seeds will you plant in our minds this morning?
Well, I think that this is the time for reflection. This is the time for planning, and this is the time for action. There's a Yoruba Odu Ifa that I quote in times like this. When we are in planning mode, when we are preparing to do something and put forth intention, we say, Abede awo nikera, odifa fo nikera tim fujujumo sowo aseti, abe modelo muyawo ikera, edumare modun sasete laye. And the significance of that recitation is that we make prayer, we make petition that all of the intentions, all of the actions, all of the endeavors that we're beginning to put in place or that we're undertaking, may there be no blockages to those endeavors manifesting. May there be no blockages to those petitions being delivered. May there be no blockages to those prayers reaching their destination. May there be no blockages to the victories and to the successes and to the benefits of our efforts reaching us. So may we have open roads. May we have open roads to expel from our lives that which doesn't serve us, and to welcome into our lives that which will bring us success and victory.
Well, Chief Ayanda Clarke, thank you so much for starting this 2024 with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. May 2024 bring us continued success and victory.
TheFadaraGroup.com, F-A-D-A-R-A, TheFadaraGroup.com is where you can find him. You'll find me right here. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A collision between two planes on a runway in Tokyo has left 5 dead and more than a dozen hurt. Japan Airlines Flight 516 apparently collided with a Coast Guard aircraft as it was attempting to land this morning.